Folks, we are going to get started here. I've got a poll up for everybody. And if you could fill that out if you'd like, it's just a quick poll on what LLMs people are using today in their at work. So this is going to be like your ChatGPTs, your Claudes, your Copilots, Geminis, etc. And hopefully you can see that poll. And we'll do one more here. I'm going to launch this poll quick. The second poll is going to be how you're currently using AI in your day-to-day work. So we've talked to a lot of different people that are at a lot of different stages in their journey. Some folks are just dipping their toes. Some people have it fully integrated into their whole organization. So I'd say most people are somewhere in between, but feel free to give your feedback on where you find yourself in this journey. And as we're filling that out, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Spencer Kuo. I'm the VP of Product Marketing at FYSoft. And I'm really privileged and excited to give you guys this webinar today. It probably won't take the full hour, but it could. And as the title says, it's why standalone LLMs fail at financial analysis. And that's just the title. I mean, what we're really talking about today is this subtitle here, how to navigate your AI strategy for the Office of the CFO. So we're going to look at how people use AI models in the Office of the CFO, in finance, and different options that are out there, whether it be just using things like ChatGPT or Claude to ask questions about your financials, to your organization building custom agents, skills, building custom applications using AI, to the commercial options, right? Buying or subscribing to a vendor solution. And we're going to kind of compare what those different options look like and what the advantages and disadvantages of those different options are. So I'm going to start off by telling a little bit of a story. All right, so this is a story of your friend, your best friend, Claude, who is a chef. So imagine you are a young person coming up through the world. You and your best friend Claude are coming up through school. You both go to school. He goes to culinary school. You go to university, and you guys are coming up in the world together. And your best buddy Claude becomes an executive chef while you go into the world of finance or IT. And he is really good as a chef. Like wins his season of Top Chef. So he's a really, really good chef. And so one day you're at your little apartment and you invite your friend Claude over to catch up, and he cooks like a really good impromptu dinner. Comes over, you guys have a meal, and he uses your kitchen, the ingredients in your pantry, in your fridge, and he cooks up something that just blows you away. And you guys have this amazing meal together, amazing quiet meal in your apartment using your stuff. Okay. So that is an example of or an analogy, I should say, of using like just ChatGPT or Claude desktop, or the web version of it to do chats and stuff like that. It's really, really good, but it uses your data, your resources, what you have on your desktop, what you have at hand, essentially. All right, so a few years pass and you've kind of made it big in the corporate world, and you've moved into a big house. You've really got a really nice kitchen, and every month you like to entertain your friends, entertain guests. So you hire your buddy Claude to come and cook. But this time you tell him, hey, I've got this amazing kitchen set up, commercial grade. I'm going to bring in all the assistants. We're going to I'm going to stock the pantry with the best ingredients. We're gonna bring in somebody to manage the kitchen, somebody to manage safety, make sure nobody gets sick, servers, the whole the whole infrastructure to provide this amazing catered meal. And your friend Claude, he's going to be the executive chef, is going to do the most of the cooking, but you've got this whole infrastructure you've got for him. And so you have this once a month. Your guests come, they have a great time, a great meal, and this is an amazing experience because it's very tailored to what you like and what your guests like. But because you're such a good host, you spend all of your time that night checking on the food, checking on your guests, make sure everybody's happy, making sure everything goes perfectly. And you don't really get to enjoy the meal itself because you're managing all these different things. Okay. So the analogy here is more of a build it strategy. You can take Claude and use Claude Code or ChatGPT's, OpenAI's Codex, and you can build your own applications. You can build agents and develop skills, and you can build a really custom solution for your organization. Okay, you just need to have all of the pieces, but it's going to be something that's built specifically for you, tailored, and you can have a really great experience with that. Now, a few years go by, and your friends kind of stop stopping by for these dinners because it's kind of the same menu every time. It's the same experience, same menu, and you just think to yourself, why do I want to retain all this staff and maintain all this fancy equipment when really all I want to do is just sit down and have a nice meal with the people that matter to me the most. Okay. So meanwhile, your buddy Claude is now working as the executive chef at a five-star restaurant. And so you decide, you know what? I'm gonna go visit him. Go make a reservation and go check out this restaurant. And it's like top of the line, five-star steakhouse. And so what you do is you just go to the restaurant. Restaurant's got a menu, order off the menu, and maybe you try something different that you haven't tried before. Maybe he's not the only chef there. There are other top chefs that are also at that kitchen. Other models, AI models, right? And so you have an amazing meal, sit down at the restaurant, have the meal, pay the bill, done, go home. So the five-star restaurant model, the restaurant itself manages the entire operation, right? They hire the staff, they have all the safety in place, they do all the payroll, manage all the economics, design the menu, and have the recipes. So this is what it is. It looks like if you go with a commercial solution, right? You buy something off the shelf like a telly from FYSoft that has all of that built into it, and you just want to sit down and have a meal and not have to deal with all the overhead. So this story is just to give you an analogy of different ways that people use AI. You may have the private chef, which is like you're using the Claude desktop or the web version or an Excel add-in. It's great for the one-off asks, right? Like, hey, help me look at this, check these reports for errors, build a spreadsheet, fix some formulas. So it's really good at that kind of one-off ad hoc work. Okay. The second level is your full stack in-house solution, meaning you turn to your IT department and you say, hey, there's these great technologies out there, which I'm sure they already know. And we want to we want you to build a solution for the finance department, for the office of the CFO, using, pick your AI provider. All right. And most organizations will pick one and stick with one, right? Right now, Claude is probably leading the pack. but that changes every every month. It could be somebody else that gets ahead. So an whole organization may be built around one AI technology, let's just say Claude, for example, and you can build very customized solutions that fit your business perfectly, right? The third option is the commercial solution, right? That is going out and subscribing to a vendor solution. The vendor has done all of the work, they maintain all of the code, they do all the enhancements and manage all the governance. So it's the buy option, right? It's the same as going to a restaurant, they take care of everything, you just have the meal. So if we look at these a little bit closer, and I'm going to talk about what the advantages and disadvantages of all these different options are. Now, I will break them into these three different pieces, but in reality, in the real world, chances are that you will have a combination of these solutions in your organization, right? You probably will use ChatGPT to ask one-off queries and questions. Your organization probably will build some solutions, and you probably will also purchase or subscribe to vendor solutions or commercial solutions as well. Okay, but they all have their place, and they all have their advantages and disadvantages of when you should use them and when not to. Okay, so their kind of baseline solutions of using a ChatGPT or a Claude or even the Excel versions of those, what it's good at. So those are really good at doing one-off ad hoc queries, right? I'm looking at a report, I just have some basic questions about it. I want to just ask a question ad hoc that I notice. Specifically, the Excel add-ins are really good at doing modeling and looking for errors in models. So let's say you use Excel to do like a forecasting model, and then you want to use Claude in Excel to say, hey, scan through my Excel spreadsheet and look for where I might have missed something, where I have errors in my formulas. It's pretty efficient at doing that, as well as reformatting reports and presentations. So I use Claude all the time myself just to punch up a report or a presentation. I've got a plain Excel file or a plain Jane PowerPoint, and I can put it through these LLMs to punch them up. So it's really good at things like that. This is really, if it's the only solution that you're using, then I would say it's really geared for small businesses or small teams or people with not a ton of data or not a ton of data sources. So, I'm just analyzing one spreadsheet, or I'm just looking at my one ERP instead of pulling from like a bunch of different places. These tools are also really for your kind of your internal consumption use, not so much to let me produce a board book that goes out to investors or something like that. It's more for my own, your own personal use. Okay. Now, where some of these tools fail, if you're just using ChatGPT, for example, the chat functions, or you're just using the Excel, plugin for Claude, a lot of people have experienced inaccuracies, hallucinations, excuse me, where these LLMs will make things up. I mean, and confirmation bias goes along with this. And it's just the way that they're designed, right? An LLM, what is an LLM? It is, it's a large, or LLM, a large language model. It's designed to predict what the next sentence or word should be in a response. Okay. And so in a sense, it's trying to answer a question in a way that it thinks that you want to hear it. Right? It's like that friend that always tells you what you want to hear. It doesn't keep you accountable, really. It just gives you platitudes. And unfortunately, there's some, a lot of lawsuits going on right now with OpenAI, for example, of self-harm and people that are. There was one recently of a gentleman who was advised to not seek medical attention because it was telling them how great he is and how he doesn't need that stuff. And now they're suing OpenAI for millions and millions of dollars. So because of how they're designed, and I'm sure anybody that's, the first time you use ChatGPT or Claude and you ask it some questions, random questions, the responses are great. They sound amazing, but they're designed to make you feel like they sound amazing, right? So it's very dangerous, though, when we're talking about financial analysis, because we don't want to hear what we want. We don't want it to tell us what we want to hear. We want it to tell us, like, the truth, right? So this is where there's some danger in some of these models. Also, security and privacy. So, when you're using some of these, if you're not careful, it's a public model. What you're asking it, the data that you're feeding it, can be training training their larger models, and it's not private to you. And then persistent memory. So this is, when you use something like these LLMs, oftentimes it doesn't retain a memory of the past. It's kind of one session at a time. You think about how it works in the back end. Whenever you start up a new session in an LLM, it kind of creates a new little mini computer or environment for you to work in. Okay, but then you start a new session, it creates another instance, and so it doesn't always cross those sessions in terms of its memory, which could be kind of frustrating because what you're looking for really is something that's equivalent to an analyst that you hire who you you work with, and then the next time you work with them, they remember all the stuff that you told them in the past. Okay, so that's one of the shortcomings of these tools. I'll give you some examples. So we'll just open up Excel, and here I've got a report in Excel, and I'm running in here the Claude plugin for Excel. Okay, just to give you some examples. So if we look at some past conversations where it's really good, let's see. Let's go to this question I asked. I said, hey, look for errors in my formulas and fix the sheet. And sure enough, it found some errors in my sum formulas and percentages, and it went in and fixed them in the spreadsheet. It's great. One of the issues is it's kind of that people have said is the auditability is difficult, right? It can make fixes, and sometimes if you lose this chat history, you don't remember, it doesn't tell you what it fixed. But that being said, it is good at doing things like that. Because this is embedded in Excel, it's also good at formatting and building out other spreadsheets. Like, so for example, I asked it to build out a forecast. Okay, so based on this data, build out a forecast, and it did its thinking, and it produced a spreadsheet, another sheet. Okay, so it's great at that stuff. Some of the weird kind of disadvantages, though, are like one of the ones that I mentioned was memory. Okay, so for example, I had told it something very basic. I said, remember that my name is Spencer. Okay, got it. Noted. But then in the next session, or even another workbook, if I ask it, what's my name? It says, well, I don't have that. So just opening a second, another chat, I asked it something that I had told it to remember, and it doesn't remember it. Okay. So that's why this is really good for the one-off ad hoc working in your data, but it's not necessarily good for kind of repeatable long-term strategy around AI in the financial world. Okay. So your personal chef, Claude, use it for these purposes, quick, easy fixes of spreadsheets, quick analysis, ad hoc analysis, and that's where it's good for and should stay. But just be cautious if you're doing anything very complex, and make sure you validate the results and the numbers, because it can make stuff up sometimes. Okay, it does, because it's a quick answer, and it doesn't necessarily have all of the layers and staging for validation, which we'll talk about in a second. Okay. So the second option is the build it. This is the, hey, I've kind of got my own catering business out of my house, and I have all this staff, right? It's building tailored solutions, using your internal resources, or even hiring consultants to help you build tailored AI-based solutions for the office of the CFO. Okay. So obviously this is really good because you're going to get very tailored results. Okay. You define the spec, you define the KPIs you care about, you define the format of how you want things to look, you define everything, and it's going to give you what they're going to develop based on your specifications. Doing in-house development is also great from an integration perspective, because you're the organization, you have all the data or access to all the data from all your different data sources, and so you can develop the specific integration layers that you need, and it's coming straight from that source to your application instead of through a third-party application. Okay. And then third is governance specific to your company. So when people are thinking about their overall AI strategy, a major part of that is defining the guardrails, the governance that should apply across the organization. Okay. And so when you develop your own solutions, of course, then you can apply that governance layer across everything that's developed. And that ensures compliance and consistency of that governance throughout the organization. Okay. So who is this good for? Well, obviously, large organizations that have the resources to develop their own solutions are the ones that tend to do more of this. You need to have the resources, you need to have either in-house development teams or the resources to hire consultants to help with that development. You need to have not only just large enough development teams, but expertise within those teams, right? You may have great DevOps within your organization who are great at developing some of the more legacy types of solutions or maintaining your existing stack. But this is a new skill set. And so obviously you need to either have that skill set or be able to find people with that skill set. There's a lot of great consulting firms out there that we interact with that have those skills. Obviously that, it's time and money. It's also, this is also the path that you would consider more for people that have a distinct enterprise-wide strategy, right? From the top down, they're saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to embrace this technology. We're going to invest in it. We're going to develop it ourselves and build our own set of applications. Where it's not great is, as you would imagine, just maintaining this ongoing, right? We're talking about, people make it sound like, oh, it's easy to develop these solutions AI. I mean, we go to these conferences, we go to these workshops where they say, oh, let me show you, we're going to build an agent, in this session, we're going to teach you how to build an agent. Okay. And building an agent or a skill is just a tiny part of creating a actual usable solution that is user-friendly for the user, that has the security layers, the governance layers, the integration, all that, right? So just keep in mind there's a lot that goes into this. So maintaining all of those different um, stacks, all those different layers is quite a task. Okay. Um, so that ties into the second point here, upfront and total cost, right? It's, I think that's just self-explanatory. And then speed to adoption. This is where we see a lot of people right now that are considering this path. It takes the short of it is it takes months to develop something that can be used and adopted by, let's say, your finance department or any department really. Okay, so it just takes a long time to get there. So to do this type of in-house development, as I was kind of alluding to before, this is a very summarized look at the different layers that need to be considered, right? You guys would need to develop the whole front ends to it, making it easy for the users to use. You have to develop the orchestration layer that manages everything, all the different skills and agents that does the work. Okay. Select which models make the most sense. You may get tied to a specific model, which then you're kind of pigeonholed, but those decisions have to be made. There's the data integration layers, governance and security, and all of the kind of infrastructure that it needs to make sure things are accurate, things go smoothly. Okay. So we're talking about developing, basically a full developed solution if you want to build it. Is it easier than it was in the past? Yes, because you can use things like Claude Code or Codex to write some of this stuff, write it faster and develop it faster than in the past. But it doesn't mean that you still don't have to have all of the layers that are required to have a successful, accurate, high performing, secure solution. So to give you an example, I'm going to take just one piece of this. Okay, we're going to take one piece of this and the analysis skills here, and I will show you kind of what an example of that looks like from a custom development standpoint. All right, so if we look at, I'm in Claude here, and I'm going to go to my skills, and we have a skill here called monthly financial review. Okay, this wasn't developed by me. This is developed by somebody else, but they open sourced it. And what that allows us to do, I'll show you the result of one here. So this is a custom skill built in Claude, okay, where you upload reports. I just did this one income statement, and it will go through and perform an analysis, right? It's going to do these different reviews. It will ask me questions throughout, which I've already answered, but it asks questions throughout. Does these different review cycles, and then synthesizes it all into a narrative and produces um, a final kind of summary. Okay, let me open that up, right? Where is it? This is the summary it produced. Okay, it's pretty nice. So this is a sliver of what building a custom solution in this case Claude can do. Now let's take a look at how this is kind of coded or configured. All right, so if we go back to the navigation is a little bit, kind of have to know where to click here. Let's go manage skills and the monthly financial review. And this is kind of where it's defined, all right? And the skill is called monthly financial review, but within there are different sub-skills, um, like how to set up the project, um, some rules around creating dashboards and the styling, how to design the interactive questions, review cycle states, all these additional uh, skills have to be are part of this whole stack here. All right, but if we just look at this one, so the monthly financial review, okay, what it is, the core responsibilities, and you know the inputs and so on and so on. And I'll just scroll down through some of this. Let's see, like the logic on the review, the questions, cycle patterns. So, somebody needs to write all this up and develop all the, it's like writing code, but you do it in plain English these days. So this is what is involved in kind of designing just one skill within Claude. Okay. Just to do a review of a financial statement. Certainly easier than writing Python code yourself or writing, C# code, but you still have to develop out these skills. Okay. And this is just one skill that then gets put into a project, and then the way it works is you come in here and you say on the monthly financial review skill and attach your spreadsheet and go. Okay. Let's see if I just pull in a file and kick it off. And I'm not going to run this whole thing because it'll take several minutes, but that's the user interface. Now, what I'm showing you is just one little piece of a full stack application, right? That's just this analysis skill. It doesn't take into account pulling in data from different sources, doesn't take into account any security, privacy, accuracy, monitoring, etc. That still has to be, built around all this. Okay. But it is very good. It is very, it produces really nice outputs. And, with enough effort, you can build a full stack application. Okay, so that's the kind of build it option. Finally, you have, the commercial option, the 5-star restaurant. So we're talking about solutions that are out there on the market that are developed by, software vendors and have kind of turnkey solutions, sometimes specific to different functions. Okay. So, at FYIsoft, ours is called Telly. Telly is a financial analyst that's just out of the box, analyzes the reports. But there are a lot of other vendors, not just for financial analysis, but for any aspect, period close functions, reconciliation, cash management, right? There are a lot of bespoke, best of breed AI-based tools for the office of the CFO. So buying off the shelf basically is what I would call it. What it's good for? Well, fast adoption and speed to value is probably the number one thing. You're getting something that's already packaged. It's going on a lot in buying a car instead of building one yourself, right? It's going to the restaurant, ordering off the menu, and enjoying the meal. It's fast to value. These are typically designed for specific functions, right? So Telly is designed for financial analysis. You may use Pyradius for your order to cash, analysis or workflow, excuse me. So And they're also good because they'll have user-centric interfaces. What I mean by user-centric interfaces is, they have a more traditional UI with buttons and menus, as opposed to what you saw me use before with Claude, which is typing in something saying run this monthly financial review and describing what I want. Okay, and that's still running. So more of your user-centric interface. Okay, so who it's for? I mean, the mid-market is the prime market for these types of solutions because it's this kind of balance between something really light and something really heavy. People with lean IT teams. Okay, so you want the benefits, but you don't have a development staff, or you don't have a consulting firm you work with to develop those custom solutions. And then also this GUI first user. So people they're more comfortable with menus and buttons than writing prompts. Okay, now it's all not always perfect, right? There are some disadvantages to commercial solutions. The biggest one probably being that you're bound by the developer's roadmap. Okay, a lot of you're gonna get what they develop. It's not custom to you necessarily. Now, companies like FYSoft, we mitigate this in a couple of ways. One is the feedback loops. So within the application, you can give feedback, and that goes right to development, and then they can make changes and adjustments to the software, which is different than doing feedback to Claude or Anthropic, for example. They're not going to develop specific solutions to your company. Okay. But you are to a certain degree bound by the developer's roadmap. Okay. When you go to the restaurant, you can only order what's on the menu. Where also these can also struggle is if you have extra integration layers. So you again are tied to whatever integrations that the vendor provides that they have developed, as opposed to a custom solution where you develop your own integrations. And then finally, limited competitive differentiation. So what this means is, well, if you can go to the vendor and buy this solution, so can your competitor, so can everybody else. And so you don't have necessarily an advantage over your competitor that's using the same tools. Okay. Now that may not be a big deal. I mean, everybody is using, the same Office suite, the same email, the same search engines, the same CRMs, or the same ERP even. So maybe not a big deal, but it's certainly there. As compared to a custom built solution in-house, right? Then it's unique to you, and you may have a competitive advantage by doing that. So Telly, for example, is one of these out-of-the-box solutions. This is the company that I represent. So, I like my job, so I'm going to have to tell you about it. But all kidding aside, it does fit that model of these solutions that are readily available and that remove the burden of all of those layers of a full stack solution. Instead of you having to manage it, the vendor manages it. Okay, this is nothing new. But Telly specifically, so it's built for finance teams. It's going to have all of the things that you would have in your Claude or ChatGPT chats. All of the things that you would typically have in a custom solution as well. So interactive chat, you have that, right? Multi-entity hierarchy. So it does understand complex organizational structures, which is something that ChatGPT and those types of chats don't necessarily understand inherently. It will do all the different analysis, variance commentary, KPIs, comparative analysis, risk and anomaly detection. Okay, it will produce those professional outputs, kind of like that custom solution I showed you, that skill in Claude. You can do the same thing in Telly. All right. And user customization. So this is where one of the big differentiators. With Telly, you can select, it can select actually for you different AI models to use. So you're not pigeonholed into, hey, we're just pitching our cart to Anthropic or to OpenAI. Telly actually uses all of them in different ways and different capacities. It optimizes which AI model to use based on the task it's trying to perform. Okay. Also, you can create custom skills in here, meaning like that skill that I showed you in Claude, you can take that and then just incorporate it into Telly and customize your kind of agents and skills within the application. So you aren't just pigeonholed, as I was saying in the last slide, you're not necessarily bound to our roadmap. There's a lot of customization in Telly that allows you to not be tied to just what we think is important. So here's just a very brief look at Telly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in here. I'd love to show you guys a full demo. If you do want to see that, just reach out to us. But the way that it works, I'll point out a couple of things I've been talking about, right? It's a GUI interface, meaning menu driven. You don't have to, tell it what you want to do. You just pick the report you want to analyze, and it's going to do the full analysis, right? Just some examples here, right? It's looking through the report, giving you analysis from all different angles. It's completely just turnkey out of the box. You don't have to prompt it any of this stuff. It has all the chat functions that you would expect as well. So just like if you were to chat within your, your OpenAI, your ChatGPT or your Excel Copilot, you can do the same type of chatting here, right? This is, let's just look at some past chats. Like, here's one that is perform a location comparison analysis and tell me which locations are performing well and which are lagging. All right, it's a really basic question, and it's going to go through and do that analysis, looking through my organization and the different layers of the reports. Okay. Basic chat, of course, is there. Telly is also unique in that it understands organizational structures of your organization. So like I just prompted it to say, show me the hierarchy of the organization. And you can see this particular company has all these different levels, North America within their different divisions, within their different locations. And they can get pretty complex, and Telly does inherently have these skills and tools to understand a complex organizational structure. Why that's important is because it doesn't get confused. If you're trying to tell it to do a comparative analysis of certain levels, it understands that it's not going to compare apples to oranges. Okay. It all comes down to accuracy. And then the memory. So if you remember in that example in Excel where I told Claude in Excel, my name is Spencer, and then on a subsequent conversation, I asked it, who am I? Didn't remember, right? It's a very rudimentary example, but Telly does remember all of these things, right? So I just said, who am I? And it remembers exactly who I am and what I care about and any of the things I've fed it, okay? Now this is a silly example, but if you think about it in the real world, you may be telling your AI assistant here some important facts about your company. Hey, when you look at our gross margin percentage compared to the industry, we should be at X%. and use that going forward on all your analysis. You don't want to have to retell them these things about your industry or organization. You may say, hey, we have every year this big accrual that we post, and I know it looks funky, but that's just normal for us. And it should remember that, so that every time it does the analysis, it doesn't spit out the same, hey, I'm seeing this crazy thing this month. Right? That's just creating more work for you to go back and say, no, ignore that again. Okay. So it's that assistant that works with you that never forgets. So having this persistent memory is important to have when you're doing financial analysis. And it's going to be able to do all the same type of error checking that we did in Excel. And it can do all of the dashboarding or summary analysis as well. So for example, this was the report that was produced in Claude using that custom built skill. Telly can do the same thing. You just say build a executive summary and it will produce the same type of documents. Okay. So you're getting all the things that you can do in a custom built solution, or almost all the things you can do out of the box, but this time out of the box, off the shelf, instantly, right? You don't have to wait for somebody to build it. And then one last example, right? If you could, let's see, let's look at a prompt here. I told Telly to create a optimization dashboard, and it will produce, this is what it produced, okay? So this is all out of the box functionality. And it has all the benefits of being able to chat with it. It has all of the benefits of having a user interface where I could just say, hey, summarize this into a PowerPoint, and it'll produce a PowerPoint for me. Being menu driven, and you're not tied to a single model. All right. So I'm going to give you a quick, this is under the hood a little bit. When you develop a solution, you just got to have all these different layers. But what I'm pointing out here is the fact that Telly uses Claude, it uses ChatGPT, it uses different, ChatGPT Mini, Opus. Depending on what it's trying to do for you, it's going to apply the most efficient, cost-effective, and highest performing models. And you're not tied to a single vendor or a single AI, engine. So those are some of the benefits to Telly specifically, but in general, going for commercial solutions, because they're going to have a UI that's easy to navigate. They're going to have all of the features and functions that you would develop yourself, but you don't have to maintain them. So here's a little comparison chart of the 3 different options we talked about, right? The kind of try it, build it, buy it, using just your LLMs on your desktop, building a solution versus using I put Telly here, but really this is representing the commercial solutions. Okay. So yeah, they can all analyze the report, sure. When you get complex structures and reports, these start to have inconsistent results. Now, the second column is really kind of describing what needs to be developed in order for a build-it solution to work. So you have to develop these things called, well, what we develop are schemas. Basically, it needs its own set of tools or agents to interpret reports and organize them. Okay. And that's what Telly does. Persistent data. Especially in the financial world, you cannot have hallucinations. Hallucinations, oh my gosh. There have been a lot of reported instances of these solutions, like especially Claude and Excel, changing data without telling anybody. So that's a big problem. Multi-stage quality checks. So again, this is about accuracy. So when you prompt an AI with a question, it's looking for the fastest, most kind of logical answer based on prediction modeling. And that, it can lead to this kind of feedback loop, this confirmation bias, just telling you what you want to hear or what sounds good. And you need to have a solution that has validation and validation gates and checks multi-stage to say, okay, this is what the response is. Now let me take my response and put it through some additional stages of validation to make sure that this is the truth and not just what people want to hear. Memory cross sessions. So that's that whole, hey, remember what I discussed before. If you're developing that type of solution, you do need to have a SQL store, a database of all those past conversations that the AI can go back to reference. If you're using just, a basic LLM, those aren't persistent, right? You tell it something, it stores it in that box, then you start a new session, that first box goes away, and you're on to the next. Okay. Of course, we tell you, it has the whole history store in databases to accomplish this. You just don't have to build it. Customer-owned tenant. So a public LLM is public, right? You don't own that tenant. It is not. It's out there for everybody to use. But of course, a in-house built solution, yes, that is your tenant. Everything exists within your walls, your environment, and it's protected. Tele is the same way, actually, except it's not necessarily on your premise. It's in your own instance in Azure. But every tenant within Tele is its own private instance. It doesn't like it. The models don't train other clients' models. Okay, they're separate. Governed learning. So when people think of AI, they get it confused with machine learning sometimes, but you want your assistants to get better over time, right? Based on your interactions and your data. So, your desktop versions, they're not going to do that. Again, it just either trains the public model, or if you have that turned off, it doesn't get better every time. It's not learning from the past because it has no memory of it. The build it, yes, you can definitely do that. You just have to build all those layers to do it. Tele does that as well. It uses agentic context engineering. Basically, it has a bunch of skills or tools that take what you do and feed it back in and evaluate it to say, and score it to say, oh, is what you did something important, common, uncommon? Should it be applied at what grade? It does a lot of this. It looks at the context of what you have done and incorporates that into the future, into its knowledge base. Okay, so basically the bottom line is it gets better over time. It learns and it can distinguish the things that you do that are more important than others and weights them so that it learns and locks those things in, applies them more like a person would. And then, just as a side note, every time I think about how this works, right, there's so many parallels to humans. And I don't know, I've been married for 21 years. And when my wife says things, she always complains. It's like you aren't even, you don't even remember or hear half the things that I'm saying. And it's like, well, yeah, I can only absorb so much. I have to filter things out. Like there's certain things that are important, some that I can forget. So these AI tools kind of work that way too. All right. The last thing on here, multi-tenant role-based security. So your basic LLMs don't do that. If you're going to build it, yes, you definitely would need to build in all those security layers. You want to integrate it into your company's security. Um, so that can be a real benefit to the build. And Telly has role-based security. It uses MCell for single sign-on and all that good stuff too. So it does provide this, and that's obviously an important ability to have a system that multiple people within your organization can access in the way that you want them to access it and have individual customized experiences. So this is just kind of the overview of the differences. And, of course, we, and I'm biased, think that going with commercial solutions is the best balanced option, right? It gives you the best of both worlds. It's quick, it's easy, it's fast. It doesn't require a lot of overhead, and it gets you value. It gets you all the outputs and values that you would have, values from that you would get out of like custom solution to a certain level, to acceptable level. So Telly, for example, it runs on all of these tools. So it is taking advantage of this amazing technology. It doesn't replace those models. It uses them to its advantage. It is private. It runs within your tenant. It uses databases, so it has all the memory. All this stuff is confidential. Now, one thing I did say prior is if you build it, you can manage your own governance layer across your organization, right? If you build your own solution, you can have a consistent governance that's consistent with every AI solution. One thing that's unique about Telly, and I don't know if other vendors do this, but you can use Telly's front end engine and then your own governance layer. You can tie it to Microsoft Foundry, your own Foundry in your organization. So you get the best of both worlds where you have like enterprise-wide governance, but a off-the-shelf solution on the front end. So, and finally, auditability. So every figure traces back to the source. I mean, this is a must-have in any of these solutions. You've got to have that auditability. All right, so we're right at the end of our time here. I did take the full hour, looks like. I really appreciate you guys coming in to check this out. As I mentioned before, yes, we're kind of categorizing these into 3 buckets, but the reality is most people will be using some hybrid approach, a little bit of doing ad hoc queries and questions in chat, some custom solutions built by our organization, and some off the shelf. And I just wanted to lay out those different options for you guys and give you an idea of what the pros and cons are. All right, so I don't want to take any more of your time. So thank you guys so much for coming. Please check us out. Go to fysoft.com. Get a demo of Telly. We can actually set it up and use your data and show you how it works. Or you can email me. My email address is right there on the screen. Oh, actually, that's not even right. It's missing an I. Sorry about that. Yeah. So thanks everybody for coming, and we'll see you on the next webinar.